Hello everyone, DonTheCrown here. We finally got a little bit of an update to the patch notes here. If you don't know, the XD team has been pretty much out of the office for the last week because they have the big Chinese holiday Golden Week. And so they're launching the game after their holiday as opposed to before it, which is really nice. But we finally got some patch notes for some updates here. Some things I think are kind of good, but some things I think are kind of bad, and we've already kind of given some feedback to them that kind of seems to be bad for some of these changes, but we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. First off here, like Keen Intellect seemingly got a little bit of a buff from the actual patch notes, because I think that this was 10% in the patch notes. Now it's went up to 15, and now it's down to 12, so that's kind of good. And they clarified that this is multiplicative. So these pretty much is pretty useful for having more than one empower skill on your bar for spell burst skills. We also is getting multiplicative mana for defensive skills. I could see this really going crazy on Rosa too. Also the cast speed per mobility skill. This has now been clarified to be multiplicative and still 12%. They also went out and took a whole bunch of nerfs to a whole bunch of these other prisms. So Guaranteed Reaping, for example, has negative 60% duration of Wilted Ailment. And let's duplicate this tab real quick. So that one was, if we go all the way to the top up here, is the one where when dealing damage, if spell burst reaches max charges, all of the charges will be consumed, and it reaps 0.9 seconds of damage over time from each spell burst charge consumed. And so that now also has negative 60% duration of Wilted Ailment, which is kind of bad, but I'm sure that people will still make this work. Escalating Affliction here. Now each point of affliction value only benefits from lucky damage. This is the one where basically, I think it's actually gotten a few changes. They nerfed it down to 4%, but the original here, basically, so each affliction effect is replaced by 0.1 to 4% additional damage over time. Now they made it so that it only benefits from lucky damage, and 70% of the max bonus and additional bonus also applies to damage over time. I'm not really sure what the max damage bonus and additional damage bonus means here. And they also gives you negative 20% hit damage. So overall, this is like kind of sad because I was planning on using True Flame with this potentially and scaling some affliction to get a whole bunch of damage for our fire skills. So maybe this is still very good, but we have to remember that these are not only like, we're not like comparing these to replacing a main talent, but we're also replacing a purple prism. Purple prisms can actually give you some more damage as well. So I think that maybe these could possibly be a little bit over nerfed. Next up, they changed Fortune's Flip, which makes it so that you get like lucky crit, lucky damage, a whole bunch of lucky stuff basically. I'll show you what it is. So it gives you lucky damage, lucky crit, and lucky evasion. And it was 33% chance when triggering non-main skills and does not trigger them. And now it's whenever you trigger a lucky or non-main skill, you lose all the effects of it for 4 seconds, which I just think is super unfun, super not good. And they need to change this because otherwise I feel like people are just going to be like macroing their buttons because the game is pretty much about like automating a lot of your other skills and having something that's like very good damage boost, very good crit boost, and then can't trigger any of your skills is just stupid. So yeah, hopefully they'll do something about this. The armor stacker prism as well got a longer interval. I still think this is pretty okay. You're gonna have people that are gonna have like 1 million to 2 million armor with tons of total life. The one thing I'm really kind of hoping here is that Unwavering Fortress procs immediately. You don't have to wait 10 seconds because if you actually have to wait 10 seconds in each zone, this thing is like super dead on arrival for the season because you basically walk into the new league mechanic and you have to wait 10 seconds. And then if you go down the floor, you have to wait 10 seconds. I'm pretty sure it's a time thing. So you don't really have the time to stand around and wait for this thing to proc to give you life, which is kind of silly. Sweeping Fury, I believe, actually got a buff. This is the one that makes it so that when you shoot projectiles, that goes around in a pattern. Actually, maybe this was it didn't have an interval before. Now it has a short trigger interval. So if you cast projectile skills, it can shoot them in a circular pattern doing half damage, which I still think is fine. Spell Ripple, oddly enough, got a buff. The spell trigger interval went down. And then Towering Presence made it so that you cannot deal ailment damage, which I think really makes sense because this was doing 100% of main hand weapons base damage to spells and adds 100% of its crit strike rating to spells as well. And I'm willing to bet that like ailments were probably going to get the full thing there, and adding like multiple thousands of flat damage to ailments probably would have been a bad idea. So there's that. Conductive pretty much got a massive update here. There was a lot of concerns about this because of the way that splitting conductive from doing 10% more damage to 5% and 5% more damage pretty much led to a runaway train as you amped up your numbed effect. Now it is just going to be 11% more lightning damage, which pretty much kills this for non-lightning builds. But I think that that is totally fine. And this is actually a buff for lightning builds, which is good, but it's not like a huge buff, which would have been very, very scary. Next up, we get some new modifiers here. So gain fortitude from melee skills, I think went from 3% to 5%. We also got brand new armor, less damage taken over time. Same thing with evasion, less damage taken over time. Demon's Touch has already gotten nerfed. The base damage of offhand weapon is now down to 20 to 30. Cargles also has the negative duration of your skills. So this is actually a buff here. And then the other thing that did here was you get more Warcry effects. So I think this is like overall a buff for Cargles. And then they also buffed up the armor and evasion. Thunder Manipulator got kind of a little bit of a change here. Basically what they did is they made it so that the number of numb stacks that you need for it to actually activate has gone to 6 to 10 as opposed to just having 10. But on top of that, whenever you lightning damage critical strikes grant 2 to 3 paralysis or numb stacks, now it's going to be lightning damage critical strike gives you 20 to 30% numbed effect for 2 to 2 seconds. So yeah, this basically makes it a little bit harder to apply max stack of numb, but gives you some, numbed effect, which is pretty good. Big news, Ghost Slaughter is now globally dropped, whereas the new Vajra handguards, which is like combo point gloves, those are going to be coming from the Fire Zone, I believe. And I believe these are these gloves. I personally don't think that these gloves should be anywhere near the same tier as that. So I find this very strange switch. Ghost Slaughter has been a very popular glove for a long period of time. And in fact, removing it from the loot pool might actually make it more uncommon since you don't have a target for it, since it's already a pretty rare pair of gloves. So we'll have to see how that goes. Maybe this is a ghost buff for fervor builds. We'll have to see about that. And these gloves, I don't know if they're good. Unless this is a combo point amplification, then that would be really ridiculous. But these definitely aren't as good as Ghost Slaughter at the first look. Crescent Slash got a little bit of a buff here with having the duration of its buff going up from 4 seconds to 8. Now it has a persistent tag. And then Serpent Beam basically got damage, and a persistent tag. So Serpent Beam is getting a lot of love here. Lightning Storm, they took off 60% ailment damage. They really don't want people using this for ailment. So there's that. Thunderbolt Overload also has its split count capped. This build was pretty much breaking servers, and I'm sure that they were pretty aware of that, and so they are making it a little bit less hard for us to break the server by splitting too much. And any additional splits will be more damage. Flame Core, basically they murdered a build here with Gemma 3. This is one of the builds that I thought was going to be a pretty good starter. The Flame Core I think it's Trauma build, basically gone now with this nerf, which does suck if you're planning to play that. Ghostblade Iron Harrier, projectile damage went up. Explosion damage went a little bit down. Crescent Slash Flash, they made it a little bit easier for you to get the stacks here for attack speed. And the damage penalty also went down. It's kind of strange because in these patch notes, there's a ton of combo point buffs, and there's practically nothing for Bing 2. It almost feels like we're playing a combo point patch as opposed to the spell burst patch. But on the rising, the damage penalty actually did go up. So this is kind of a little bit worse for that. Definitely a little bit better for flash. The barrage here, I believe, went up as well. That's a buff. The Inferno here, also another buff for Serpent Beam. The damage penalty went down, so that's a buff for Torrent. And then the damage penalty for Twin Blaze also went down, so that's a buff. And then Lightning Storm, Raging Storm got mega nerfed. It used to give you a little bit of a damage buff, and now it gives you up to negative 50% less damage done. So yeah, you're probably not going to be spell bursting Lightning Storm would be my guess. And Motionless got a little bit of a text update, but it still works the way that we would expect, pretty much just like standstill support. I'm sure there might be some additional patch notes coming, but yeah, these are pretty interesting. I'm really hoping, especially that they redo this Fortunes Flip thing, because this kind of feels like it's dead before it even got to be played, which really sucks. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you guys soon. We got basically like less than 2 days now, and I'm very hyped, and we'll see you guys then. Come by the stream, say hi.